magazine, you come across a full-page nude photo of a girl.
Is this testing whether I'm a replicant or a lesbian, Mr. Deckard?
Just answer the questions, please.
Hello and welcome. Welcome back to the Officer's Lounge on my flagship. One topic that stays in the popular zeitgeist, which is another way of saying popular mindset, is the movie Blade Runner and its sequel and the debate over whether that sequel is canonical or not. Last time we talked about the second movie. Now we're moving backwards, and I guess we'll end with a conversation about the book, but I'm joined with my friend Captain Petty, and we're going to talk about the movie Blade Runner, the movie that started it all, released in 1982.
Why, hello there.
Hello, Captain Petty, and welcome back to the Officer's Lounge. We just watched the movie. What a great film.
I think this movie's boring. Nothing happens. There's no narrative. The special effects are mediocre. This is the greatest movie ever made. It is the most beautiful thing ever committed to film. I fell in love with this the first time I saw it at the Museum of Moving Image in not so great but sometimes great Astoria, Queens, New York. Everything about this movie is perfect.
Cut.
No, this was director's cut. I saw the final cut came out in 2007. So a young Admiral, I'm sorry, Captain half H.
Maybe
Nelson.
just an ensign then.
Yeah, H. Nelson Petty got a nice low-level job at Best Buy in 2007 for one purpose, so he can get his hands on the Final Cut Special Edition, which I totally forgot to bring, by the way, on Blu-ray of the Final Cut, and I also saw it in the theater. This is the greatest movie ever made. Everything about it is perfect. What?
I was excited enough to see it in theaters too.
Oh, this is the greatest movie ever made. Everything about it is perfect. I'm kind of done talking about it. How about you?
What? I will say
debate over.
Here's the problems with the movie working backwards. We got a perfect final cut that's hard to criticize and hard to say anything bad about. But working backwards, we had progressively less and less clear-cut narrative of what was going on in the movie. And, if we rewind to the movie I saw as a kid, I saw a movie that for that time was still a really, really, really good movie.
But it slapped together
in a time of much better movies in general. So there are other good movies playing at the time, like
there were good movies in the 80s.
You know what's funny? On June 12th, Zora's inception date, a movie called Raiders of the Lost Ark was released just one year before Blade Runner. Maybe just months before Blade Runner, because I don't think Blade Runner came out as a summer blockbuster. I think that one sort of came out in spring, and it was a safer area where it could have.
I mean, there would be no place safe for this movie.
I don't know.
It's a boring slog.
Captain Petty, I can see you clearly are still feeling the effects of being stunned earlier by mistake when we were drinking punch before the film.
Watching this movie, I was stunned on purpose.
I have a few notes.
I'm going to be
here.
acting my namesake for any negative feedback on this perfect film.
What I love is that I have my notes for the Star Trek episode Doomsday Machine instead of my episode notes for the Blade Runner. But here come the Blade Runner notes, and here's a question. These are just some strange things I saw in the movie, and maybe they'll lead to a more meta discussion. At the beginning of the movie, we see Leon being given his VK test, his Void Kampf, by Holden. And now we know that he's not all that special, and text on screen.
Or smart.
And I don't remember what the original cut had, but there's text on screen telling us there's already been a few problems with these replicants, and they're not allowed to come back to Earth because they got violent and killed a few people on Mars. And these memories are a new thing to try to keep them under control. So Leon, he's an older model. He's not a Nexus 6. Well, maybe he's a Nexus 6, but he's a Nexus 6.0. And he's a Nexus 6 kind of made to be a load lifter. He's not gifted with a lot of intellect. Maybe he can be upgraded, but he's not Roy Batty. He's not quoting William Blake. But he kills Holden how?
There's a gun underneath the table.
And again, we see devastating effects of ammunition.
He infiltrates Tyrell Corporation.
Do you remember what Bryant says about how Holden's doing?
He'll be fine as long as no one unplugs him. Which is
You
actually
breathe
the scene.
okay if nobody unplugs them. Yeah, I just watched it a few hours ago. Still a great movie. Every time I see it, I enjoy it more. I enjoy it.
So
as
you
much.
agree that it's perfect?
I do agree that it's perfect, but I will say this:
Oh, so
when
what's
he
the debate?
attacks Deckard later, why does Leon not use his gun?
I don't know.
Why does he decide to? Is it because
Maybe when he was fleeing the Tyrell Corporation, which is a giant building in downtown LA, he just chucked the gun?
he could have chucked the gun?
By the way, if you want to see the actual miniature model of the Tyrell Corporation, they do have it at the Museum of Moving Image in beautiful Astoria, Queens.
Astoria, Queens is beautiful. It's right near the building where a star of this movie later on was, in the year the movie took place, right? Or just before. Let's just say that in 2019, Sean Young and Rachel were both wanted by the police.
All right, I don't know what you're alluding to. Let's
That
New this morning, the NYPD is looking to
That
question
news clip will
actress
be at the end of
Sean
this
Young
video.
over an alleged burglary in Queens. TMZ is reporting that the actress, who was recently in Blade Runner 2049, was allegedly caught on camera stealing laptops and video production software in Astoria. The actress reportedly appears on the surveillance video with a man.
again. That just, I think maybe it comes to me now, maybe he wanted to beat him up a little to find out his birthday.
Oh, because he has that information. 'Cause he
Yeah,
can find it
yeah.
out.
So because we're going to live 4 years, that's fine. Now,
So how about we get to just the main plot of this movie, which people
Oh,
say
well,
that,
okay.
people that say there isn't one.
here's a main plot of this movie point, and then we'll opinion right into it. Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Hate, love, fear,
Anger, envy.
So they built in a failsafe, a 4-year lifespan.
Which
Bryant
I already
says
kind
that.
of laughed at that.
Well, yeah, because
Why? Maybe the one gripe I have is like, why even bother them? You know, they have 4 years to live. Actually, and we see that Roy. We should probably tell our listeners the plot of this movie if they've never seen it before we get to the
part
end.
of this movie is that 4 alien androids who are indistinguishable from humans, very much like the alien that we see in the movie, very much like the android we see in the movie Alien.
Very much.
Very much
I
like
like
it.
that you made that connection. 'cause
Very
I've always-
much like
yeah.
it. Indistinguishable from humans, except for the fact that they're maybe smarter and more in love with life.
Stronger.
Like maybe partying harder,
More
living
intelligent.
harder. They certainly seem to enjoy alcohol. It seems to affect them. They eat. We see them asking for food, but we don't know that they need it. But
Admiral?
it seems they have a
Admiral?
biological component. Go ahead.
You're rambling.
Well, I'm very much trying to describe these replicants. They are far stronger than us. They can dip their hand. One thing they love doing is dipping their hands in freezing and boiling liquid to freak people out.
They don't know the difference.
No, they know the difference. They do it very deliberately in front of the Chew, the
Yes.
Eye Man.
Eyes, just eyes. Anyway, so Rick Deckard is
There's
reading.
an interesting misquote of William Blake when they kill Chew. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Rick Deckard, Blade Runner, that's a special unit of the Los Angeles Police Department. That's, as my comrade here was saying, who does outrank me, was saying he's employed simply just to take out these replicants if they get out of line. So he's alleged. We're seeing him in Chinatown. So apparently he's just moping around. Gets picked off the street by Gaff, which is also a fellow Blade Runner. We're led to assume. Dragged back to the police department and taken out of retirement to go because he's the best. It's like the classic film noir story. So then we're introduced to the 4 replicants: Zora, Pris, Leon, and Roy.
We hear of 6, but we have. If you listen, you can hear the overdubbed
There
dialogue.
was a plot hole.
They
There was
had
an
too many
extra one, I think
replicants.
Lucy, I forgot the name of the other one that was supposed to be, that was taken out of the script.
Yeah, they lost the storyline. Is that why
So
that math is wrong?
That was a mistake that was left in every cut except for the final cut in 2007.
6 replicants escaped, 3 male, 3 female, and what we end up, 2 of them got fried by in an electrical field. They changed it. It was an energy field in the first cut. He had an electric field,
Really?
I think. I think it says energy field in the first cut of the script.
I don't know why they would change that.
You know what? I used to read and reread the graphic novel, and then the graphic novel, which was probably an earlier version of script, it was an energy field. But
Really?
maybe it always was electric
That's
field.
not exactly relevant.
No, but the changing of the movie and how we had, what the movie I saw was a really good movie, but maybe not the greatest movie that year or the greatest movie.
It wasn't the greatest movie of all time yet. 'Cause
It had
a
some
couple of
strange narrations.
It had extremely strange narrations. It was described by the
They shoehorn
director.
in the offensive N-word.
The director of Shawshank Redemption says it the best. It's dunderheaded.
I don't know. Ridley Scott was doing a great job achieving an aesthetic and a vision, and Ridley Scott was told by Philip K. Dick he got it right, which I have to wonder if he just thought the technology and stuff looked real great, because the constant rain is not part of the novel, and the novelizations I don't believe he ever has a constant rain. It's always in every Philip K. Dick book blowing dust, and in this book the dust I believe is red.
I haven't read the book in years, but I watched the movie almost, I would say, on that.
Someone released a plant-killing virus in West Germany, and now there's just radioactive dust blowing around.
That's from the book or from the
That
movie?
was from the book.
Oh, I thought it was from the movie The Happening, directed by...
No, in the Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, one of the products that Buster Friendly and his Friendly Friends show advertises is a lead codpiece, so that you can have the ability to leave Earth, because if you're sterile, you can't go off-world, which is weird.
I would love to be sterile.
I would love to go off-world and be sterile, yeah.
So, now he's being interviewed by the... I was wrong on 2049. It's not the chief, it's the lieutenant. So, he's meant to go to the Tyrell Corporation, which makes these replicants, to interview a replicant who doesn't know they're a replicant, to see if that void comp test from earlier works on them.
Yeah, and you know what? That's cut weird too, because Bryant sort of tips his hand. He's like, "There's a girl there. You're gonna put it on."
Yeah.
So he knows a little more than he's saying. But
Yeah.
he may also know that Deckard's a replicant. We just don't know.
I can't wait for us to just spend an hour and a half talking about how it doesn't. Who gives a shit? Anyway, let's get.
You
to the
said
plot.
something once in a discussion about this movie that I'm going to put out there right now that
Fine, let's
might
do
mean
it.
more than anything else. Whether or not you truly believe Deckard's a replicant, and by the final cut he certainly is, but whether or not you believe
Fuck
it,
off. Who
the
gives
most
a shit?
important thing is that these androids he was hunting were more alive than him.
Yes, that's what we were saying.
And that is what means more than anything else in this movie is they are so much more alive than him.
It's like K in 2049. The only time he had any emotion, he became human, just being made to think that he was human. He basically became human because he had the emotions of a human, which is the only thing that separates replicants from humans.
Are we talking 2049?
We are.
Now? Yes.
That's what makes that movie great. What makes this movie great is this asshole jerk-off alcoholic civil service worker who preys upon robot ladies, as we'll talk about in a bit. Finds his own.
And eats like a pig.
He slobbers down. I know how you hate people eating on the subway. This man.
At least he goes
This
to a
man sucks
restaurant.
down noodles like nobody's watching. No, absolutely dumpy
And
apartment.
everybody's watching.
Probably the most comfortable couch you'd ever seen in a movie. Anyway, so he appreciates life only through watching a replicant, Roy Batty, pass away at the end of the film, who finally appreciates life more than he ever could, and supposed to a new lease on life, whatever, happy days ahead. Anyway, so he does the void conf interview on Rachel. Rachel is a quasi-attractive. She's universally beautiful, but she's just she's not my type. She's one of the classic
a very
Hollywood
hot
beauty.
woman for 1982.
Yes.
She was what you would see, and I think Sean Young was a model.
Okay. Yeah. What's Lieutenant Uhura's something?
Michelle Nichols.
Michelle Nichols. Yeah. Michelle
Not-
Nichols
not
is
good.
more my type,
Michelle
if you know
Nichols.
what I mean. Michelle Nichols would have been a great replicant.
But also in the same vein, if you want to see someone who looks like Rachel, think of Carrie Fisher Young is a better looking version.
She looks
of
like
the
a
same kind
doll.
of woman.
She looks like a doll.
And also, what's weird is that Rachel, Sean Young was supposed to be in Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark
I think
and
she
was too young only 2 years earlier.
So also
To
I
be
think
Harrison's love interest.
there was
How
also
weird.
talk if she wasn't and pun intended, batshit insane actress, that she was also considered, if they did Catwoman in the first Batman movie, she might have been in the running.
I think she showed up on something like Arsenio dressed as her own homemade Catwoman outfit and scared people
Which is
out
not
of
crazy
it.
at all.
By the way, let's talk about one thing. By the way, Roy Batty's incept date, the day Galileo died, that may have been a coincidence. I don't know how well Ridley Scott researched these. I googled the incept dates. Zora, the date of the Peasants' Rebellion, certainly something British, English, Ridley Scott would
None
appreciate.
of these sound like coincidence to me.
It doesn't sound like a coincidence.
And of course,
The greatest rebellion of rebels where they asked for their rights in England, well, it was post Magna Carta too, so they had some mechanisms like 13 something.
And of course, Pris is Valentine's Day, and she's like, you know, a pleasure
1381.
model.
1381, and I think it's a 1260 or something like that is the Magna Carta. But
I don't know. That's not in the movie Blade Runner. So
It's in Robin Hood.
Oh.
Kind of. It's the
Alright.
same bad guy from Robin Hood signs it. Anyway, and Wilson's 14 points were also elucidated on that day, which is about freedom from want and freedom to be, free. At any rate, one thing about the movie, cultural touchstone, Deckard's gun. I call his gun the lady killer because he only kills the female replicants with it. He doesn't have any luck against the men.
he actually only kills one replicant.
He kills two.
No, he doesn't. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. He kills two. Sorry. He kills Pris and Zora. He doesn't do very well. He's not very good at it.
When the other cops show up, they think, as you just sort of forgot for a moment, that he's killed Leon. Which doesn't make sense with ballistics, but they don't give a fuck. It's just a dead Andy. They're not even going to do ballistics on it. They're going to throw it into a scrap heap.
Oh yeah, just leave the body there.
And by the way,
they call up the cleaning crew for that one.
Bryant, so you see a
one-man
cleanup
wrecking
crew
crew.
so here and there, I believe.
Yeah.
Bryant, by the way, so inhuman, so like the things he says are so emotional, but he says them so vapidly.
You can tell. Yeah, you can tell
He
that
talks about taking life like it's just bullshit, like chewing gum.
Yeah.
Like
He's always got a shit-eating grin on as well.
If he was to shoot someone dead and you said you just killed someone, that must be the most exciting thing you've done in a while, and he would say, actually, I was chewing gum the other day. And that would be about as much as you would get out of Brian. So is Brian a replicant? Because if anything, he's more repulsive than...
First of all, the stupid fascination with Deckard being a replicant. I hate being asked that. It's like, okay, I have it written down here in Flomo.
There's value in
Flomo's
not
the name.
knowing. I'll
Yeah,
say
there's
that.
a value in not giving a shit either, Admiral.
Yeah, you shouldn't invest too deeply into whether he's a replicant.
Well, you know
it
who
doesn't hurt
has
the movie.
Do you know who has invested very deeply in it?
Everyone else.
Ridley fucking Scott.
Ridley Scott has...
He vowed that by the end of the sequel, you will make sure that you know that he's a replicant.
And I'm going to tell you something about the final cut. It's brilliant. But it had the ultimate screen test. 13 years of constant re-releases and feedback
Good.
from people.
It's like...
He gave everybody exactly what they wanted. It was a perfectly screen-tested 13-year-old recut we got, or even older.
15. 1992 to 2007. So it's like, basically, it's just like it took a
lot of work to get this
It took a
fucking
play
movie
out of
right.
Nintendo's book. If something's not finished, you just don't release it yet.
The movie I saw was like a much more interesting version and a much more immersive version of Sean Connery in Outland, if you remember that
What are
cool
you talking
movie.
about?
There was a similar movie to Blade Runner starring Sean Connery. Check it out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
send you the trailer. It's great. Connery plays like a marshal in space, busting a drug ring of space miners. You'll like it.
All right, so Rachel ditches that Tyrell Corporation now because she finds out that
Well,
she's...
no, she gets turned out. Tyrell won't talk to her, and she just kind of has to grab a car.
Because she figures out that she's suspecting that she's a replicant.
Now, in the novel, there are two Rachels, but that's not very important.
No, it's not. But I'm glad you brought it up. That was
There's a
me
lot
being,
going on
That was
in the
me
Rachel
being my
character.
namesake. Yeah, there is a lot.
There's a lot going on in the Rachel that we get.
Yeah.
She's not as outright murderous as Rachel, too, who's called Hillary in that movie, isn't she?
What are you talking about?
In the book, I believe the Rachel character is two androids, both called Hillary.
I read it 6 years ago.
Okay, yeah. It's not Terrell's niece. I forget his name, but his niece's name is Hillary. Rosin is the company. It's the Rosin Corporation who makes the replicants in the book.
Anyway, so she comes crying. She comes to Deckard's apartment, sneaks up on him. He's kind of a jerk off because
She shows up in the elevator.
Shows up. That's how do you not realize she's there? She's probably
He's a terrible cop.
She's a.
Or is he wasted?
He's probably wasted. She's also.
He's
a
also
robot.
called her like 3 times to hook up.
Oh, the drunk dial.
He first of all, he's drooling all over her, even before he knows she's a replicant. They have a conversation that really hooks him with the
You
book
can tell
about
that Deckard doesn't fuck.
when we first of all we see one of the most beautiful pieces of sci-fi miniature work ever with the Tyrell Corporation, and you have to also check out some scenes from the movie Metropolis from F.W. Murnau. Very much inspiring it.
Is that Fritz Lang?
No, I believe it's Murnau, but I'm not
Fritz
sure.
Lang, the
Metropolis.
The black and white film.
Fritz Lang.
The German expressionist.
We're gonna find out.
It's
right
Fritz
now.
Lang. Some of us read Android's Do a Dream of Electric Sheep over and over again, and some of us watch movies for discussions, but that's just fine. Anyway, she shows up. He kind of toys with her a little bit if she's a replicant or not. She starts to realize that
You're right. It's Fritz Lang. I'm sorry.
I'm fully aware. That would be actually a good discussion. So she runs off. Then he goes out to.
I was watching it like offhandedly the other night. There's some similarities in the aesthetic to Blade Runner.
Oh yeah. So then he goes out to find his first kill, which is Zora, who is a stripper. I can only assume.
And by the way, like in the movie, it's easy.
She's naked, so I figured
it's easy to forget this about this cyberpunk movie, but we've got a good film noir element operating through it, and it's been cut down just a little in subsequent cuts. It was heavier in the first edit, where this was more a very gritty detective story that just happened to have these amazing science fiction elements to it.
I think that's a lot. You feel like it's a lot less film noirish because they take out the
narration.
Yes, which
the
actually,
narration was trash, but it did fix it to the 40s.
It's not complete trash. It is trash.
Some of it's good.
I'm gonna give you.
He was the kind of cop who called people bad, istophobic names.
It ruined. It completely.
Come on,
ruins
Deckard,
it.
don't be an asshole.
Come on, Deckard, don't be an asshole.
I've got 6 skin jobs running around loose. And then he was like, quickly, but 2 of them are dead. So what the fuck?
Anyway. So anyway, he gets to the club, and apparently there was supposed to be this
Taffy Lewis's.
Wait,
after he's done the legwork, he has to stop off at 2 different places. First, he's nice to his source. She gives him the license in a scene that they redid 1 for 1 in Blade Runner 2049 when she finds the serial number on the scales and gives the number of the merchant who made it, because she knew right away it was locally made. And he doesn't speak to anyone. He just walks around talking English like Harrison Ford. And why would you want him? That's like having William Shatner do Esperanto, which may have happened, actually. But the point is, he goes to his source, who sends him to a believable person. She's like, I know this work. It's this guy. Yeah. He goes over to this guy. He shakes him down. He flashes his cop badge, and he's all cop and dick about it. And he's like, how many snakes do you make? I want to know where you sent it. And he's like, all right.
Yeah.
And that leads us to Taffy Lewis. Taffy Lewis, an interesting, shady underground character that he could have been a whole movie on his own. Taffy Lewis is cool. Taffy Lewis is interesting. Taffy Lewis is 90 seconds of this movie, maybe.
But everyone in this movie is memorable.
Anything you want to say about Taffy?
Buzz off.
Man here is dry.
Give him a drink. So, allegedly there's a scene, how she takes the pleasures from the serpent.
You buy snakes from the Egyptian, Taffy?
So, I don't know how you're saying this is less film noir.
The final cut is a little less film noir.
It's not.
Just because, like you said, the lack of narration, cinematographically to view it, probably not.
So
But
anyway,
I mean, it's been recut.
so let's get to the.
It's been recut as far more of a sci-fi movie than a film noir movie. It was 50-50. Now it's about 60-40.
Let's get to the biggest question I've always had about this movie. Why does Harrison Ford put on that voice? Why does Rick Deckard put on that fake voice? Huh.
Oh, because he is only just so smart.
He wants to come off as like
You
an
know what?
idiot.
You know what? In the graphic novel, there's some text that's left out, and I guess it was narration that was cut. And he says, "In my job, hold on, let me do Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
In my job, there's two kinds of guys: big stupid guys with guns, and little smart guys with a computer. I was a big dumb guy with a gun." And then
That's an example of good.
and then he meets, yeah, that should have been in there. And then he meets Bryant,
Yeah.
who doesn't call him an asshole because it was a graphic novel intended for like all ages. But the thing is, there's a lot more exposition in there. So when I saw the movie later that year, because the novel was out a few weeks before, or at least a few weeks before I saw it, I had a pretty good idea what's going on. I was like unpacking the movie for my dad. He was like, thought I was a genius. It's like, my 12-year-old understands this fucking movie. But
So now we got he's in Zora's room. He's inspecting the room for holes.
Dirty little, you'll be surprised what guys will go through to get a
Look at a beautiful body.
And that's what I think is going on, is that Zora is thinking that he just wants to see her, and maybe she's going to try to turn a trick on him.
Well,
She's not ready to kill him yet. She's wondering what's going on, or she wouldn't have
not
gotten
before
naked.
she takes a shower.
She wouldn't have gotten naked if she thought she was going to have to kill him. She was wondering if she was going to turn a trick.
Completely fucks her hair up.
She's also looking for allies. She's hard up for a way. She's working this ship at her peril because she needs some money. They need to go to maybe get another spaceship or get to another part of Earth.
Well,
fast.
the whole point of we haven't mentioned it. The whole point of the replicants coming to Earth is they're trying to infiltrate the Tyrell Corporation to find a way to extend their lifespan, which is 4 years. So,
Which is another plot hole in the movie based on Bryant's dialogue, followed by something Tyrell says when he meets Roy Batty. And I don't know
they
if
all
we're
have
there
different
yet.
incept dates. That's the thing.
No, all incept dates are in 2016 in different months, though.
So, you're saying because Roy Batty dies in 2019 of natural
It's the
causes.
4th year of all their lifespans.
But how about this?
But not
The
Rachel.
the
Rachel
light-
might have been made that morning.
The light that burns twice as bright burns half as long, and he's burned very brightly.
That's where I came up with a term as a kid that I use to this day about people who try to pull an intellectual ploy because they know the person's about to kill them. You ready? Pop psychology. Just last resort. When you're going to die, if someone's going to kill you,
Yeah.
if you're about to get beat up in a fight, if there's some unreasonable drunk person, whatever, the best thing you can do is pop psychology. With the basic version being, you're right! And just take the person by surprise.
Have a little fun with
Outflank
it.
them, yeah.
Have a little fun with
no,
it.
honestly, pop psychology. Everyone, I think that Tyrell at that point knew that there was a good chance that Roy was going to kill him because he had been too arrogant by giving away the plot hole of the movie. Which I guess I have to say now, when the replicants finally do meet up with Tyrell, we have to reconcile what Bryant said. They built in a failsafe with what Tyrell says. You were built as good as we could make you.
I mean, until Wallace comes around 2049.
Well, we don't know how long those robots last. We just know that they'll happily go into a suicide booth if you ask him.
Yeah.
Because Kay goes into one every day potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing can just zap him, and why it's not able to, I don't know. When he has the bad baseline, a protocol should have kicked in and
Just blew his fucking head off.
And another thing is the plot hole in 2049 is
I don't
he's
think
questioned by a
the-
harsh man who is
think there's a-
absolutely a sentient person. It's not another replicant
These aren't plot
questioning him.
holes.
This
per
is
se.
a plot problem. Why isn't that person? How come the person who questions him and does his baseline and knows it's wrong? How come that person isn't a security threat to their little plan to keep Kay from getting caught?
Maybe this-
he just likes Kay too.
Maybe when the director's cut comes out 10 years from now. Well,
Yeah.
5 now.
By the way,
We'll know.
I found out something else. French-born, French-Canadian identifying and living, Denis Villeneuve.
Okay. Oh, you know how to pronounce it now.
Yes, I heard it pronounced, and if I'm pronouncing it correctly, it's Denis Villeneuve. And I think he's a really good filmmaker. And I wish
Ridley
to hell
Scott
that
is-
we'd gotten the second half of 2049, but that's yet another podcast.
Ridley Scott is a very good filmmaker. Let's talk about
But
his film.
Ridley Scott's movie has Roy Batty born on the same day as Elvis Presley on the calendar.
We're gonna get into Elvis again.
No, we're not. That's just a quick mention.
We're gonna do
What a
sign
coincidence.
language gorillas.
By
Was
the
that what
way,
we're
he was
doing?
also born on the same day that LBJ announced his war on poverty. How's that going?
I'm not poverty stricken anymore.
True. Okay, so anyway,
My financials have had a director's cut.
I guess as we were going through the narrative, we were up to where he kills Zora.
We're out. She
Zor-
karate chops him. There's a nice little chase. If you're watching in the final cut, the stunt double's face has the actress's face plastered upon it, so it no longer looks a little hokey.
She's expressionless as she goes through her death rattle, but that
Or
works.
whatever
That
dude or
works.
dudette is playing Zora.
It's Joanna Cassidy, and she's very good looking, but you can't tell in this movie. They gave
no,
her
that hair.
that hair, and also her
No butt.
outfit is really weird. It doesn't do it. It does nothing
Doesn't-
more.
yeah.
Despite being naked,
I'm a butt man,
We mostly see
and,
most of the nakedness we see is to her back and shoulders.
I'm also a Daryl
Uh,
Hannah man as well.
Daryl Hannah's nakedness is
It does
she's
not-
not naked, first of all, but like her bare flesh, like her legs that she's using to kill and crush people, absolutely horrible. But anyway, Deckard's cover blown as a inspector for the Americans for Variety Performing Artists.
Variety performing artists.
Nasty, dirty little holes that they.
The dialogue there was also really
She just
bad.
karate. His cover's never been blown. He just karate chops her.
You've got a really good
Like-
book. You couldn't harvest some dialogue from another part of the book to keep that going, because that was terrible. By the way, Ridley Scott did not write apparently much dialogue, if any, for this, because he's not a screenwriter or
There's not a lot going on in this movie.
He's not a
either.
dialogue or screenplay writer on this movie, and there isn't a lot of dialogue.
Alright, so you're gonna have to help me with a little bit of
And
chronology.
there's also not a lot
Pro-
of music. For a lot of times, we're watching stuff in the.
Oh, you mean Vangelis's amazing life changing soundtrack,
when we get music,
which
it's-
I listened to
when
all
we-
day today on vinyl.
When we get music, it's great.
The 2016 pressing that's red is the one you want to get if you want to get this soundtrack.
Listen, when we get music in this movie, it's great, but there's a lot of time where there's just like say silence because there's now no longer any narration, where we hear the engines of industry just throbbing away. and
Or
it's established-
rain.
And this is the thing, like, is cyberpunk just another way of saying film noir of the 21st century?
No, it's sci-fi slash film noir.
You have so
This
so
movie
I would
invented
say
it's
that
hard to describe.
the movie moved
It's like
from
describing like describing heavy metal to Black Sabbath.
this
It really
movie,
can't.
which along with maybe earlier movies like Clockwork Orange, may have invented the cyberpunk concept. This movie just really shows us a cyberpunk world. I think that a lot of this machine sounds that we get, the operation noises, they're very important to establishing our world. After killing the replicant, he has a run-in with Inhuman Bryant. We gave our thoughts on how inhuman he is. He tells him he's a killing machine, talks about murder and death like it's no big deal. He has no regard for these replicants, and we found out that most people do. Deckard's like, I'm going back to my place. I'm going to sleep, or something like that.
Yeah.
Some glib line, and he just walks away from this murder scene, bloody as hell, and there's some cleanup team there. And the death of Zora, he fires through a crowd of people a few times. It's obvious that if he hit someone, he would have been fine.
He's a
too.
really shitty cop.
He's a really good shot, though, when he's
also
shooting. When
it
he's
took him a
shooting.
few shots. He's also terrible.
But he didn't
with
hit
women.
any bystanders.
There was not that many bystanders.
There
He was
were a
shooting
lot
her-
of
He was
bystanders.
shooting her through like a closed storefront. Which she
There are
broke
a lot
every
of
single pane of glass possible.
There's a lot of scenes where he doesn't fire, where he's running around with the dummy gun that's not ever going to go off, where he's holding it up like he's about to fire and there's people in the way, and he holds off a lot. He's responsible, but then when he does unleash a shot, there's like, he fires like, she's like 120 feet away, like 30, 40 meters away, and the bullet is great. It seems like a rocket kicks in the power of the bullet after he fires
there's like
it.
a spread thing going on with that, because when Leon blows Holden away in the beginning, Also, he doesn't die. Which is also
Leon's
very
gun is
suspicious.
very different.
He does blow it in the back of a giant chair, so maybe that's...
They're cloning and holding a new chest and heart in the book, so and a spine.
We're not talking about the book.
And his spine. The thing is, I would say the medical continuity.
He's not doing great in the movie.
The medical continuity for Holden is almost the same as it is in the book. So we can
to
look
live.
at that.
He needs to live because he had a deleted scene.
In the book, only Holden. In the movie, only Holden's in bad shape. He probably is going to make it, but he won't be so great. We don't see Holden, for instance, in 2049, which would have been fun. He could have been like a cyborg or something.
Well, because that's what makes the second one great. Doesn't really rely on callbacks and stuff like that. So anyway,
well, we do get Edward James Olmos. It would have been nice to see the other side of the coin.
yeah, okay. So he goes back to his apartment. Then there's that
Ambush in the elevator.
ambush in the elevator, the canoodling.
The weird.
People think
she
it's
wants
rapey?
it. She doesn't want it. Then she says quite clearly that she does want it.
Yeah.
Because he kind of gets. What really happens
gets a
here?
little rapey.
We called it rapey, but here's what happened. It was a different time. It was a different century.
I hate using that excuse.
It was a different century. But here's what happens. Deckard, who might be a robot, and Rachel, who is definitely a robot, and cannot be attacked, assaulted, or disrespected because she is a thing in a machine. And this movie is to determine whether or not she has a consciousness. We find out she does, so later on you can feel it was wrong, and I guess on a second view you can think it was wrong. But the first time you think, can he really rape this inflatable woman?
I mean, if she has enough emotions to be sad that she's not a real woman, then yeah.
What happens is he moves in on her kind of hard, then he catches himself and backs off, and he's like, I want you to say, I want you to talk. And she's like, I want you to. It's a little bit, it's kind of sexy.
It's kind of sexy.
And then, like,
also, if she really didn't want it to happen, she's a replicant and could have just popped his head like a fucking grape.
Right. That's the other thing is, why would you bring in this thing that was so deadly to you? But I don't think he ever takes his gun off until they're both like kind of.
Well, he's also an asshole who
undressed.
just wants like to get some of that replicant hoo-ha.
Or is he
Some
not
of that
afraid of
pussy.
her because he's a replicant too and he can take her on?
Okay, you know what? You want to get into the replicant 2 thing? Let's do it. All right.
Well, I want to get through the narrative of this movie so we can talk about
There's
all
not
the
much.
things.
There's not much.
There's
more.
not much more left. This movie
Nothing
this movie has a very tight time frame
It's called
and is
fucking atmosphere.
about 48
If
minutes
you don't like atmosphere,
shorter than.
If you don't like films. If you don't like films, you're probably not listening to this.
This is a great film, and the atmosphere it sets up is great.
This is the best film. It has the best special effects of all time. It has the best acting. It has the best everything. The best music, everything. It's great. Ridley Scott, you're a genius. You're not a great man anymore, but you're a genius.
You did your great stuff. You're good for an 80-year-old guy. The Last Duel, a movie worth seeing.
Oh, man. You know what I do?
I enjoyed it.
Admiral?
Yes.
You know what I used to do when I had a television, which I don't?
What?
I used to watch Prometheus on April Fool's Day.
That's a terrible movie.
And I used to try to figure it out every time.
The joke's on you. There's no meaning to that movie. It's
Nothing.
just garbage.
There's goo.
We could smoke pot in our spacesuit.
You know
The
what?
whole movie was built around that scene, I think. So anyway, Terrell, he has a couple of henchmen. The eye guy we talked about, Leon, and Roy
hunting
attack
after
the eye guy
Yes.
in his eye-making sanctuary. And the eyes are the window of the soul, and the soul is what it's all about. And I think that's why Terrell has those giant window-like glasses.
You mean the bartender from The Shining?
Terrell
same
is
actor,
the
right?
bartender
Yeah.
from The Shining. You're right. Yes,
You've
he's
always been here.
except when he goes to the future to be part of Blade Runner.
And also when we'll talk about the stock footage later.
Leon would have made a good caretaker at the Overlook Hotel.
He wouldn't. Yeah, it's actually.
It's funny that there's
Speaking of
there's an
Thunderhead.
actor and a scene from The Shining in this movie.
Yes,
That's
the
crazy.
the happy ending
The happy.
when they're in a shitty spinner car, which is named.
I think even the bad ending shows their car driving away and they're fruitless. Now we know from if you accept the second movie as canon, they're fruitless flight.
If you.
Anyway, we have a lot of great stuff ahead of us in the final act of Blade Runner, where things are just absolutely crazy. Pris, the pleasure model. Now I noticed this one thing: Zora, who's been killed, was part of a kick assassination team, whatever the hell that is. And on her screen it says retrained. Also for Pris it says re-educated. So she not only knew the sex stuff, but she was re-educated in case she had to fight.
She definitely knew a lot about backflips.
We could always say the base she was at might have come under attack, and they may have counter-programmed her with a military program, or the robots stole a military program, or it's a download from Roy.
Also, we have to also take into account that Earth is basically the slums of our galaxy now. Off-world, they never really stay where off-world is. Probably Mars.
Canada might be okay according to the book. I think Ridley Scott
Canada's off-world.
You know, Ridley Scott sort of shows us that people like Terrell, who can live in large enough buildings above the weather systems, live in an Elysium of sorts. I think that's the thing. And it's at Deckard's it's at Terrell's we see weird things like the owl, where we get a lot of hints about
So the smog of LA doesn't get up there?
It doesn't. Well, we see sunlight. We see sunlight coming through the window, and it's resplendent on Terrell's face when he's talking. I want to see a positive first before I see a negative.
Provide you the positive.
I want to see a negative before I provide you with a positive. My niece Rachel. The thing is, it is so straight. Terrell is so weird and so alien.
Yeah.
He is well cast. He's a freak and a dick. He's a dick.
He looks like he fucks though.
He looks like he
That
made
guy-
a
that guy-
He's
that
made a
guy
few
fuck-
He's had sex with a few Rachels.
He fucks Rachels.
He has a few Rachels. He has like 3 of them back in his.
Rachel fucker.
He has 3 Rachels back in his
Speaking of
apartment.
fucker, father,
programmed
we'll
to
talk
fuck.
about that scene next.
He is. So anyway, the void camping of Rachel is really cringe and crazy, and we could do a whole podcast on that.
We're going backwards, I believe.
But yeah, where we are in the
We want to stick
narrative,
with the narrative, correct?
we had made it to the point where we had reached Priss's attempt to ensnare second henchman,
J.F. Sebastian.
J.F. Sebastian.
So after they go to the eye guy, they find out this guy named J.F. Sebastian is the guy who develops the mines, or he helps Terrell develop the mines. So they go to his dank ass apartment building, which is the Bradbury building in not so beautiful Los Angeles, California. They befriend this man with their childlike wonderment, and of course, he obviously has a hard-on for Priss. Who doesn't? You know what I'm talking about? So he's for some.
It's Daryl Hannah looking fine.
She always does, especially in Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2.
Neil Young's current wife, Daryl Hannah.
Really?
Yeah, can you believe that?
I'm so glad that he found a heart of gold.
Yeah, he was searching a long time.
I mean, he was getting old.
Yeah.
So anyway, he also suffers from accelerated decrepitude.
He has Methuselah syndrome.
He also. So they become best and only friends with J.F. Sebastian to get clearance to get to the Tyrell building.
Well, this happens in 2 acts. So I just want to say J.F. Sebastian, he is like up there in the Tyrell Corporation, and he has built some wonderful friends. And
Home again, jiggity jig.
he has a little Kaiserian soldier with a giant nose. We also have some interesting toys of an animal nature, a lot of human stuff. It's all about 1/3 or smaller the size of a real human. I don't know what kind of photography Ridley Scott used for some of this amazing work, but JF brings Priss, who has won his trust by covering herself in garbage. It's sort of strange. It's J.F. Sebastian is just that lonely. Anyone who is living on the street has a shot to make a friend with J.F. Sebastian, and a truly beautiful woman, more so than most. Back in his apartment, he reveals he's only in his 20s, but the actor is probably in his late 30s, and he's made up to look like he's in his 50s. I say this because I think that actor is still around, and he is a really good actor, and I'll try to remember his name. I think is it?
It is William Sanderson, Admiral.
Yeah, that's what it is. So at any rate, he went on to a great career, and I don't know if you knew this, but he's in this beloved scene from a show that you may love.
Really? Batman the Animated Series? So we're at the Tyrell Corporation scene, correct? Where they have the little scientific debate
We are
of
back
why
at the Tyrell Corporation.
I want more life, fucker, father.
We've made our way back there by Roy Batty showing up at the place where Priss lives, and he is
J.F.
just
Sebastian's.
J.F. Sebastian's, and he is being weird and strange. Roy Batty is just the strangest human being you're ever going to come across.
Basically, Priss's vagina is a carrot that's dangled upon J.F. Sebastian to help him out with clearance the Tyrell building. He goes to the Tyrell building, confronts his maker, starts asking, like, you know, why? They had this.
And we get another cool visual first, by the way. They get
His nice fluffy bed.
Repeated for the second time.
He's playing chess with J.F. Sebastian.
Well, but
in the middle of the night.
When J.F. Sebastian is kind of sus of Roy Batty and kind of sus of Priss after a couple of things, Roy Batty again sticks his hand into boiling water.
Yes, J.F. Sebastian is basically at this point at their
but Roy Batty is sympathetic to them.
I wouldn't say so.
You don't think so?
I think he's toying with them. That's the whole point. This movie.
Who's toying with who? Batty is toying with
JF. You know, he can murder him at any second. He's at his whim.
Is JF aware
that he's being toyed with?
Yes.
Do you see how comfortable he is in the elevator where they're playing chess with Tyrell?
Isn't it just because he's afraid of Tyrell?
No, he
knows he's going to be accessory to Tyrell's murder.
He's in the elevator with a murderer who's in the middle of a life or death situation trying to prolong their life. He knows if he doesn't get what he wants.
Does everybody kind of know who Roy Batty is because of his career?
Yeah. Well, Deckard knows. Obviously,
Deckard doesn't know, but he does have a reaction when we see him.
Tyrell.
It's not.
Tyrell created him. JF Sebastian created him.
Tyrell knows exactly who he is.
So they know who he is. They know how dangerous he is. That's why he's sweating his.
Roy Batty, possibly a robot celebrity in whatever media they had.
So anyway,
in that newspaper Deckard's always looking at.
They have their little scientific scientific babble debate. The fact they cannot prolong. There's no way to prolong the lifespan of replicants that are already been made.
And in Tyrell's place, we have something different than the rest of the world. There is no integration of former older tech. We don't see things from the past. It's all brand new. It's all except this beautiful bed, which is 19th century.
Very nice.
Canopy French bed.
So Roy figures, I guess I'm not getting what I want. He shoves his thumbs in Tyrell's eye sockets and pops his eyes out.
Of course, he assaults him with his eyes.
I wish you could see what I've seen with your eyes.
And Tyrell is pretty smug here. They go through. He knows that Roy Batty is almost as smart as him.
If not smarter.
Well, tactically, he's smarter.
Yeah.
He's developed
infiltrated his home/office.
He's been on all these missions. He's seen sea-beams glittering off the shoulder of Orion. And other things, and he's survived all this to fight his way back to the most impossible of places, the place where he was born, and he's, at this point, it's man confronting God in a way.
Yes.
You know, a little wooden man, a puppet man perhaps, a synthetic man confronting God. And God is a bit hubristic and a bit arrogant towards him. And he doesn't spend much time considering that he might just be pushing his sociopath replicant's buttons. He never really fully grasps. He's not as smart as J.F. Sebastian that way.
I don't think so either. He starts holding Roy like a child, which is very like Wallace.
First they have a very high-level conversation about medicine and future medicine and how to fix it and combinating EMH and
basically
how to use methane to stabilize the DNA strand and replication errors and. So in other words,
distant regenerative proteins and shit like that.
But we just destroyed the idea that the 4-year lifespan is a failsafe. So the question is Bryant misinformed or is it false advertising by the Tyrell Corporation?
He burned twice as bright.
But
and he burned half as long.
But why do people think they only last 4 years? Because it's planned. Because they wouldn't admit they made a mistake.
I bet you the fact
they're
that
arrogant. They're too arrogant to say.
This guy's a super replicant. So I'm thinking that his light burned brighter, so his light burned out sooner.
He's saying is because he's such an enhanced replicant, his lifespan is shorter.
I think he burned himself out.
I don't know. They said 4 years, and he makes it 4 years.
He makes it 3 years. 2019.
He makes it from January 1st, 2016
to November,
all through 2016.
So he burns out a couple of months
all through 2017, all through, and he puts himself through a lot of shit.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
He does not get shot because only women get shot by Deckard's lady killer weapon.
Yeah. So he pops Tyrell's eyes out, which is the scene that was only
And blows his head up like I said.
which is previously only in the international cut before it was put back into the final cut. Not even in the director's cut. Then there's an extra
lot of blood.
There's an extra added line of him beckoning after J.F. Sebastian, chasing him into the distance. So then he's like sobbing in the elevator on the way out before we have our final
I think
showdown.
he says he's sorry to him before as he's going to kill him.
No, he says, come. He beckons. He is toying with him.
Yeah,
He murders J.F. Sebastian.
You're right.
as well.
It's in the book that people are sorry about killing each other here and there.
He's crying in the elevator because he knows that's it. He's just gonna run out his lifespan, and that's all he's got. So he goes back home to the Bradbury building in not so beautiful Los Angeles, California, and of course Deckard is finally caught up with the two remaining replicants. Those scamps.
And now Rachel, I don't get it. She's wanted by the police, but I guess she knows he's not coming after her because
Someone
after
will.
she walks out of his apartment when he's cleaning. Now, if Deckard had 2 clean glasses, he would have gotten laid right there with Rachel because the only reason she doesn't have a drink with him is because it takes him so long to find a clean glass, and she splits on him earlier. So then he calls her. We talked about the drunk dialing from Taffy Lewis's. And then she shows up anyway. Clearly, she's DTF with Deckard. And also, like, it's the one more thing she wants out of life because she figures she's getting retired.
Oh yeah, her memories of getting like her snooch pounded are only memories. They're not even. They're Tyrell's nieces.
The story that that Deckard tells her about the spider, and how she speaks of the spider's children destroying it. That's what's going to happen to Tyrell and ultimately does.
Also, I think that
the spiderlings
how
come
much
home.
wouldn't you need a little bit more convincing that you were a robot than that?
That Rachel does. He
I
knows there's something that she's never told anyone. She knows she's never told anyone. And also she knows that Tyrell has not treated her like other humans. And I don't think she's been allowed out of that complex.
As you have so eloquently put it, just throw another one off the Xerox machine.
Cut and paste. Here's the thing. Rachel, we know from the text beginning of the movie that replicants are not allowed on Earth at all. So Rachel being on Earth is a violation of the law, and Deckard should have blown her away the moment he knew that.
Was a really bad cop. Also,
He is
Tyrell,
a pretty bad cop.
Tyrell probably just like Wallace in the second film. He's probably making all the rules anyway.
Yeah.
So what happens is one of
Tyrell
the best,
has a big say in what's
what
going
happens
on.
is next is one of the best on-foot chase scenes ever in the history of all of cinema.
Well, first,
It's up
we
there with
forgot there's a confrontation
With Pris.
in J.F. Sebastian's apartment. So he goes in there, and the place is filled with human-like androids, and 1/3 side he's human-like android toys.
She hides in the back.
And he has, basically, if you could put your Google Assistant or your Alexa on legs and have it be able to walk around your apartment, but fashioned into like a steampunk toy. They're kind of cool. And they're somewhat interactive. And the idea that he would have no friends with all that money just sort of flies in the face of the idea that money is an aphrodisiac. But you know what? It seems everyone's beaten a path off-world. That's much clearer in this movie.
And he's
where
not allowed off-world because of his disease.
Right. We speak much more directly of off-world and how that's supposedly a paradise. And the thing is, these androids have already been in a conflict there. We don't know if it's just bad for them off-world and they want to be back on Earth because they're passable.
No, they're
Or it's all about the incept dates.
Yeah, it's all about the incept dates.
Well, it's also, I mean, it's a better place to live out what's left of your life anyway.
Is it? Well, I mean,
Compared to the colonies?
Oh,
I
you
think
mean
they're
compared to
probably
being a
pretty
slave?
horrible. Yeah.
so anyway,
Coast Guard found the ship off the shore a few days ago, Dak. Crew is gone.
So anyway, what happens is Pris jumps out of the darkness. She disguises herself as a doll with some pretty gnarly face paint.
Yeah, it's cool how he
and-
walks right by her with no clue. She's able to affect
Yeah.
the robot that she is because it's part of her, I suppose.
So I used to play this movie constantly at Blockbuster. Make it a Blockbuster night, by the way, in 2006.
You could still do
On-
that in Alaska.
There's actually one in Oregon. There's one left, which
Way
I
to go.
plan
There's
to
one in
visit soon.
Alaska, too.
Is there really?
Yeah, there is.
I think you're wrong.
No, I think
When was the last time you were right?
They mostly do.
Fritz Lang?
I was wrong
Fritz
tonight
Lang.
once, but I was right
Alexa.
about some other stuff.
Where is the last blockbuster?
From OregonLion.com. The last
Bend,
blockbuster
Oregon.
video store on the planet is in Bend, Oregon.
Well, you're having a great night tonight with facts.
Oh, facts. That's what I bring to the table, facts. Anyway, so Pris jumps out of the darkness, starts, oh yeah, sorry. I used to play as a blockbuster, and this scene used to come on. The shrieking. I don't know if it's Daryl Hannah shrieking.
Okay, well, first we should point out that
This woman
she
could
very
shriek.
effectively attacks Harrison Ford a couple of times
Head scissors.
in a weird and unique and very cool to watch tumbling attack where
But
she
she-
uses a lot of acrobatics.
And it wasn't her. It's actually a dude.
It might be a dude, and
I'm telling you, it's a dude.
She's
Alexa.
about to destroy his head with her thighs in a steel-like clamp grip.
Oh, and the face that she makes is
And,
Zora levels of
they're
unattractive.
gonna blow up his head at the point of the inception of life, her womb.
Yeah, the way this woman gets
It's
blown
framed
away.
so odd.
It's the slow mo. It's agonizing. The shrieking. This woman could shriek when Daryl Hannah's
That-
shrieking.
She unwisely breaks off what would have been a fatal attack to tumble around the room some more, and at that point Deckard gets it together enough to fucking shoot her a few times, and the first shot kind of fucks her up, but after the second shot, it's like, have you ever sprayed a roach directly with
With
rain?
rain?
That's exactly what happens
In
to her.
slow
She
motion.
flips over on her back and she starts screaming. Some of it's in real motion too.
Yeah, real motion.
And her screaming is
Most
in
of
real
it's at
time.
24 frames a second.
She is absolutely out of her mind, screaming and thrashing away on the floor. There might have been some great camera work to make it look so good. And J.F. Sebastian's place, of course, a run-down dump, dust and
Probably
dirt
the last
flying everywhere.
Probably the last tenant.
Yeah, he is the last tenant in the book.
Ah, okay. So Roy comes home, sees his girlfriend fucking blown to smithereens, cries a little bit, takes his clothes off, and starts chasing Deckard through this beautiful, beautiful architectural marvel that is the Bradbury Building, which, in my opinion, is the best on-foot chase scene of all time. At this point, he's just toying with him. Now, I saw this in theaters.
It's a great on-foot chase scene.
Yes, I saw
and
this
they are
movie in
toying
theaters.
back and
100%.
toying with them 100%.
So
Although
this movie,
Deckard is not crazy to think he has the upper hand. Sometimes
he has a gun,
He does.
but that's all he's got. So I saw this movie in theaters, and it was an upper West Side crowd, so it was, people were well off. So they found Roy's gumption quite comical throughout the movie. So this whole movie is basically Roy winning you over.
They're laughing at.
They were laughing as though it was a comedy to all of his little quips and everything.
Well, he is really clever. He's quoting William Blake left and right. Although he's pretty primal and mean at the end.
Yeah.
When he
He's howling like a wolf outside of a window.
And I believe that's from the same poem he quotes when he says that he is when he goes to kill the eye guy, Chew.
Finally, the angels fell.
Fiery the angels fell, and I believe in the poem it's actually Fiery the angels rose.
Ah, really?
Yeah, it may be a juxtaposition of the William
he's
Blake
only-
poem.
he's only-
Check it out. It's called America.
He's only 4 years old, so
America is the name of the poem by William Blake. Yeah, he's only 4 years old, but he spends every off minute growing and learning. He's read that William Blake and committed it to memory, and quoted it at a quite appropriate time. But he is the fiery angel rising or falling as it would be. It doesn't matter.
Well, they're falling from the colonies. So anyway, there's a moment on the roof. Deckard is at this point.
He's been disarmed and rearmed after Roy Batty has even the odds by breaking two of his fingers for Prince
Just
Zora.
for fun, he takes the gun out of his hand, breaks his fingers, and gives him the gun back.
How many fingers does he break? Two or three?
Two, I remember.
So he doesn't break a finger for Leon. He doesn't know.
Oh, this is for Zora. This one's for Pris. He does not break one for Leon.
He doesn't know.
He also probably had sex with Zora and Pris
at the same time.
I would hope.
You would hope.
Yeah.
And Leon just sat there like kind of semi.
Well, he was at the Tyrell Corporation doing what he was supposed to do.
It's weird. You know what? I believe the picture. I think that Zora and Leon are a couple because he has her picture in his apartment. That's what he risks his life to go back to get. But he's down with Roy too. He'd have sex with Roy if he wanted to.
I'm sure a lot of people would have sex with Rutger Hauer.
And Rand said that the vampire Lestat was based on Rutger Hauer.
Really?
Yes.
Well, didn't know that Tiny Tim.
In Interview with the Vampires version.
Oh, that's a terrific film.
She wrote it thinking of him.
That's a terrific film.
It is a terrific film. We'll talk about that one day. Tom Cruise doing a great
So-
job in that one.
Rick Deckard attempts to outrun Roy Batty by jumping from one rooftop to the other. Misses, grabs a girder. Roy Batty, of course, just effortlessly jumps over him.
I don't know how effortless it is because he's about to die. He doesn't care.
Fucking effortless.
He doesn't care.
What does he care about?
He makes it, but he doesn't. I don't know if he necessarily knows if he can do it because his hands are cramping up. He's having some problems. He sticks a nail through his
just
hand.
so he can feel something to keep himself alive.
So he
a
can
little
feel
longer.
something and feel alive. He's so close to the end. He's, maybe it's the end of November. He's only 4 weeks early. It's so close to the end, and he's beating himself up so bad that even pain is preferable to nothingness at the end of this life. And he's reconsidering life as a whole as he chases down Deckard, and he's kind of going back and forth over whether or not to kill him.
I've never actually heard this chase scene painted so beautifully the way you just put it. I could not have said it better myself.
I don't think he knows
He
whether
doesn't even
he's
know why
gonna
he's
kill him.
chasing him anymore. All of his friends are dead. He knows he's gonna die.
His anger slacks off after a few of these crazy maneuvers where he's jumping in between the buildings. And by the way,
Throwing his
he
head through
does something else from the poem America. He's howling primally in a werewolf-like way.
outside the window.
Werewolves are mentioned in the poem. Yes, the
that- see,
fires
this
of
is-
Orc have werewolves
This
about
is insight
them.
I've
Yes.
never heard in any
Well,
other
I read
Blade
the
Runner
poem
podcast.
today after looking at the William
Thank you
Blake
for tuning
quote.
into Admiral Teag.
Admiral Teague does his research. He has a history degree. I think that he's supposed to be primal screaming, and almost he's animalistic, and the animal they've chosen is aptly a dog, because he's a dog of war, and also werewolves, which are wolves of war
And he's
and
only
men,
wearing bicycle
integrated.
shorts,
He's
as
wearing
all dogs
black
should
leather
wear.
bicycle shorts. He looks a lot like Sting in the 1985
Dune?
Dune,
Looks
yeah.
exactly
Like Sting. He looks almost exactly. Except, well, Sting's nowhere near that well built. Rutger Hauer will beat
Yeah.
your fucking ass. He's built. He's an urbane genius. He's got a PhD level knowledge of literature, and he's a tactical genius. And for some reason, after playing with a pigeon and seeing this pigeon that he could have just destroyed, he's
Well, it's a white pigeon, so it's a dove.
and it's a weird. Yeah, it technically makes it a dove.
Doves are just
And he's
white pigeons.
Technically, like a flip switches in his mind, like someone who smoked for 30 years and wakes up one day done smoking, like those weird stories you read
Well,
in the
he's
newspaper.
clinging on to the last piece of. It's the last thing he's ever going to hold. That's a lot.
I think it's burned. He's burned out his violence breaker. It's
Yeah.
part of his breakdown. His violence circuit flipped. He's
I've
not
had
violent anymore.
I've
Boom,
had, I've
boom.
had enough.
Yeah, I can't
Anyway.
kill anymore. Or he sees a fellow replicant.
What are you talking
He
about?
sees Deckard and he sees in him.
When we get into the
Does
debate,
he sense that Deckard
let's
could
wrap
be a
this up
replicant?
again to that
All
fruitless
right.
debate. of
Deck-
him being a replicant.
after the death of Roy Batty.
No,
and,
you're jumping
and
ahead.
Deckard-
He's handing.
Okay, sorry. you
Rick
take
is
it.
hanging
You
onto
take
the girder,
narrative.
and he looks below
Sorry.
himself, and he looks at Rick Deckard hanging onto this girder, holding on by his broken fingers, like, "Pity to live in fear, isn't it? That's what it is to be a slave." So
Yeah.
the second Deckard loses his grip on the girder, Roy grabs him. Like, he looks like a mouse. Like when you hold a mouse by its tail, that's what Deckard looks like. He lifts him up.
That's the look that he's going for. Yeah.
He's helpless, like a baby. He's
And
helpless.
it's some great wire work. We don't see the wire. He lifts Harrison
it's the
right
best.
up.
Because it's the best.
Straight up like a lever.
Sincerely, Star Wars looks like fucking child's play to this shit. I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm
this
sorry.
was a much more important effect than using the Force. This was supposed
No,
to
I'm saying the
illustrate
entire
his sheer
film,
strength.
the composite, everything is all in camera. Please.
Well, the
Anyway,
thing is, Star Wars redone, the,
Oh,
the,
no.
the Blade Runner we
Star
see
Wars-
isn't quite as good, but let's just
Star
talk
Wars
about the
ruined.
end here.
All right, cool.
The confrontation.
So basically-
it's not the end.
The last moments of Roy's Batty's life are used to save another life. And they both sit across from each other, and they're staring at each other. Deckard stares
Says
at him.
The famous line.
The famous line,
All these things we lost.
all these things will be lost in time, like tears in rain. So, it's
And Deckard's like he's beat up as hell. He's sitting there regarding his foe. We're the opponents. It's almost like
we're the opponent. He wasn't. there was no struggle here. He was doing this for fun.
His tactical abilities were so high. I mean, he came through that wall at the perfect place. He knew where to listen. He might
He was
have
being toyed with.
I think he had the apartment set up for surveillance too. He knew where to break through the wall.
Really reaching. Not Elvis reaching, but reaching.
No, their society has it. It's not a reach for them. It's very accessible for Roy.
Anyway, I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
Amazing.
I've seen attack ships off the fire off the shoulder Orion. I've seen sea beams glitter in the dark on the 10-house gate. All these moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain.
And that last part about tears in the
Time
rain.
to die. Because it's
I'm
assuming.
sorry to interrupt. I forgot.
Because
to do that.
you're
Yeah.
assuming that he is weeping because it's his time to go.
It's a great Roy baddie, but what I wanted to say is when he
Improv.
the things that he from memory. I mean, that's how much you love the movie.
No. Rucker Hauer improv that.
He improved. I think he only improved the Tears in the Rain because that's some pretty particular stuff.
I think
about
he
the
wrote that
Tannhauser
entire
Gate.
speech. He wrote the whole speech, but he improved the Tears in the Rain.
What do you say? The screenwriters wrote the entire speech. He doesn't have a. You're saying
Rucker
that.
Hauer wrote that whole speech. But he
You know
improved
what?
the Tears in the Rain.
Certainly, he's shown that he's an auteur enough and
Alexa!
great enough.
Did Rucker Hauer write the Tears in the Rain speech?
From madfix.com. Rutger Hauer not only starred in Blade Runner, but wrote his famous Tears in the Rain.
3 for 3, baby! 3 for 3!
For the next one.
Oh, man. I love being right.
If we get one more right in a row, Alexa sends us free Uber Eats. It's been a night of
right.
Alexa Jeopardy. We apologize for all the Alexas we've set off.
I don't
I'm gonna
apologize
change
for
my.
any.
I'm gonna change my wake word. Sorry, everybody.
You're getting Fritz Lang tonight.
I'm getting my ass kicked tonight, but I did watch Metropolis like late last night as I was falling asleep, and maybe it's just the F.W. Murnau Institute. His name was on screen for a minute, but the thing is, it's a modern print in English, restored with a lot of gaps and.
Which I also own on
Still
Blu-ray.
worth watching. Still great movie. You own that on Blu-ray?
I do. They recreated from.
There was
found-
a lot of Metropolis in this movie.
Yes.
Aesthetically, at least.
So let's finish.
And the struggle for humanity and the dehumanization of those workers. I mean, this is more of a proletariat socialist thing in Metropolis, but in Blade Runner, we've taken it the other way. I mean, these people are capitalists. We see so much advertising.
Oh, Al, we want to talk about that? The Blade Runner curse?
We should. We've reached the point where we're talking about the Blade Runner advertising curse. Well, Coca-Cola's still around, but they
Coca-Cola
had new
experience.
Coke 3 years later.
Yes. Pan Am?
Out of business and failed
Atari?
again, bought out of bankruptcy. Atari is back as a licensee of someone else. You can have
TDK.
fun with an Atari product.
TDK was.
TDK might be owned by someone for noise reduction technology, but
Oh,
yeah,
really?
certainly.
Okay.
You know what? I would.
Not
I'm
exactly-
gonna go on the App Store and see what TDK brings up.
Really?
Yeah,
Alexa,
why not?
what is TDK responsible for?
TDK Corporation is a Japanese multinational electronics corporation that manufactures
Is.
electronic components and
Is.
assembly in data
Okay.
storage media. Its model is
Mainly videotapes, blank videotapes.
I think they're making USB.
No, I would imagine so.
I think they're making like portable
So
hard
anyway,
drives
let's
and USB.
let's
ports.
finish off the
Tokyo Stock Exchange.
the film here.
By the
Gaff
way, if you
shows
want
up.
to invest on in TDK, they're listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange.
So
By the
anyway,
way, hey, someone brought this up in another debate. Crazy thing, Ridley Scott answered this in an interview, so I just want to throw that out there. This movie, no African Americans.
oh,
No
we'll get
black
into that
people.
later. Maybe we'll do a post-amble. Anyway,
He says, by the way, to him, Ridley Scott, it was a city of 25 million people, that Los Angeles, in his mind. 25 million.
Not one black person in the background?
By the way, 8.8 million people live in LA, I checked.
Okay.
Or maybe it's even lower. It might be 6.8. But the
yeah,
thing
because
is-
New York is 8.9.
right, New York's. But
greatest city in the world.
LA is larger by area.
Alexa, how many people are in LA in 2019?
In 2018, the population of Los Angeles was
3.98.
3.9. All right, so
Admiral.
it's really COVID. The Admiral is just not very good with his facts
Through
tonight.
COVID fucking.
It's too bad I'm gonna have to
There was-
burn this podcast. It was a good one.
5 million people were birthed between 2018 and 2022. All right. So, Gaff conveniently shows up on the rooftop, says, "You've done a man's job, sir."
Which is a strange thing to say to another man if he's a robot.
Oh, right. Do you want... Okay, let's get into this right now, okay? We've been pussyfooting around this long enough.
All right.
Do you want this motherfucker to be a robot?
No.
Well, guess what? Neither do I. Is he a robot?
Not
the director
in
said
not
that
in
he's
the
a
movie
robot.
I saw.
The
Director said that 7 or 8 years later.
Director said, yeah, but guess what? He has the glow in his eyes. Every time there's a certain amber glow in every replicant's eyes that is very present in Deckard's eyeballs at one point. Also, in 2049, it is still left up in the air whether or not he's a replicant or not.
We don't know if he's CG'd that. I want to see the original print, but I believe you.
It's in...
It's the original?
Listen, Alexa is tired of you being wrong right now.
Yeah.
It's
also only single-digit degrees out in New York, so I hope everyone listening to this is warm.
Or on the LIRR. Most of the trains
I'll
out
buy
east are
you a
canceled.
couple of drinks before you have to take that Uber home.
So anyway...
We have to work on my factual knowledge. He's going to be
It's
educating me later.
You actually know about the source material.
I knew enough to Google every line that Roy Batty said because he's talking William
Now,
Blake
let's
the
get
whole
back
time.
into the replicant shit because we're getting to the end where the unicorn, there's a origami unicorn that is dropped in front of Deckard's apartment.
I'll let Ridley Scott say it. He said to an interviewer, which cut of the movie did you see? Because that's how much chaos was surrounding
Well, the
this
director's
movie.
cut has a unicorn. Previously in the movie, he has a dream. He drinks and dreams about a unicorn. He wakes up, and then you see a unicorn origami figure outside of his door, meaning I know it's in your head, left obviously by Gaff, who's doing origami the entire movie.
It's kind of, this is counting on the audience to be very smart and maybe a little in art and
dunder-headed voiceover.
And maybe it didn't do a good job, but the thing is, you're supposed to realize that because Deckard knew about the spider, his dream of the unicorn, which, if it had been done for the movie, maybe I would have threaded that needle the first time. I had that explained to me like around 2007 when that cut came out, that's what the unicorn meant.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that the unicorn meant they could read his mind, and that was the final cut was the first time I deeply considered whether he's a replicant, because to me, in every other cut, he's a man.
Well, it's the unicorn dream that they reinsert, which is footage off of Willow, which Ridley Scott has
footage
said.
off of Legend.
I'm sorry, Willow, Legend. It's the same fucking.
Do not
movie.
watch Willow. That's free advice.
Also, you should support Willow Nightingale, who just got signed to AEW. She's an amazing female wrestler.
Wrestling always
Cute as a
on
button
the top.
and brutal as fuck.
We always have some wrestling tips for you here.
Oh,
on
because
the
we were
Admiral
reviewing
Teag
Cactus
show.
Jack versus Triple H from the Royal Rumble.
We probably
soon.
will do a
Oh,
wrestling
we
review.
will. So picks up the origami and echoes the words, "It's too bad she won't live." But then again, who does? Also, once again, insinuating Deckard's a replicant. Thing comes down. Awesome post credits theme starts.
And you hear the explosions and all the industry of the city. You can hear it, and that was a very noir moment. And we walk out of this movie the first time in 1982, having seen maybe not the greatest movie with the voiceover and the other problems, but having seen the birth of a new genre with this whole
My fucking
cyberpunk
pulse-
thing. This was cyberpunk.
This movie is fucking poetry, and it doesn't. There's not a lot going on action wise. It does ramp up. The brutality is there. The tension in that chase scene, and just the swelling of that ending. You feel like you just watched a masterstroke of cinema because you have. Now, sometimes perfection is trial and error. There are seven cuts of this movie.
Right. The thing is, we can't count the rough cut that he used to.
I
edit
own
off of.
all of them. All right. Let's rattle them off.
Is there any? Okay, go ahead.
Theatrical cut,
Right.
international cut.
Wait, there are 2 theatrical cuts though.
There's international
So
and
theatrical
theatrical
American,
cut.
international.
Then there's the work
theatrical.
print.
Which should.
Then
count.
there's the San Diego sneak peek.
It's the whole movie.
it is a sneak peek. This is a little bit more complete than the work print, but not as complete as the final. Then there's the television censored version,
Which is weird.
And then you have the director's cut,
They take out Jesus and say God a couple of times in the movie.
and you have the final cut. 7. There's few little
That's
differences.
a lot of movies, and the thing is, that's 7 cuts of the movie over the course of 15 years.
Is it 15?
So he's cutting the movie every other year, in a way.
Well, in
Now, a lot of
1986
these were front-loaded in the first.
Yeah.
But
The first 5 have the same, the happy ending, the cussing,
Roy
the
Batty.
eyes popping out in the international cut. 'Cause the Europeans,
Eyes.
They love
It's
that
all
shit.
about the eyes.
Eyes.
They're deeply about the eyes. Yeah, this movie was made for Europeans, and Ridley Scott, I think he's got honorary stripes as an American now, but yeah, certainly a British guy.
Sir Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott, Roy Batty, the delivery, doing things for fashion and culture and delivery and being a punk, not seen since movies like Quadrophenia, where it was intended. This just happened because it was so fucking cool.
It was organic.
The production design was great.
Oh my God,
Roy
the
Batty
costume.
walks into standing
fucking
there
costume.
in his leather jacket, and Leon walks
By
up
the
to him.
way,
Did
when
you
you're finished,
get your precious
Photo.
photographs?
So
Wait,
one of
hold
the-
on. I wrote it down. Ready?
Yeah,
Roy
but
Batty. He says, "Time enough," and then he looks and says, "Did you get your precious photos?"
Anyway, I'm trying to talk about the jacket.
Someone was there. Hold on.
Man,
That's
police, man,
that's the greatest delivery, man.
police. They talk like children. It's beautiful.
Police.
So
I didn't think he was talking like a children. I
think he's talking exactly like
he
a
was
children.
talking to Leon like he was a child.
that is so brilliant. Okay, that's brilliant. So, they actually they recovered the jacket. Apparently, it was auctioned off in the early '90s.
No way.
And one of the Mythbusters, the cool one, the nice one.
Yeah.
Actually,
the ginger.
he owns it now. You have something against they're both gingers. You have something against gingers. Is that
No,
what
my
you like,
dad was a
Thor?
ginger. I like gingers.
Oh, okay, cool.
I just wanted to point them out because I feel they're an oppressed minority,
No.
and I think that they've been
So, like replicants.
they've been brunette and
So-
blonde washed out of a lot of movies.
Now let's I want to get to what I have written down here for is Deckard a replicant, and in big, almost illegible letters in like giant caps I have who cares.
It seems
If you watch this movie
He seems
and
to
you
be a
think it's
replicant.
undone because a stupid, crotchety, bitchy old man who's completely out of touch with his own work is ruining it by telling you what to think, you're wrong! This movie isn't for you! Deckard is
as
not
true
a
as that
fucking-
might be, this is my podcast, and I'll continue to tell people what they think.
Okay, what do I think, Admiral?
Oh wait, you meant Ridley Scott. Keep going.
Oh, yeah. So, the message of this movie is appreciating life. That doesn't get undone whether the guy's a fucking robot or not, because he doesn't know that he's a robot. Also, Rachel does ask in the movie, have you ever tried that test yourself? I'm sorry, man. Okay, listen.
And in the book, we get the
you-
answer.
What's the answer, Admiral?
In the book, he's human, but we don't know. This
You're
Deckard
telling
seems
me-
to be a replicant.
You're telling me this guy's a quasi-retired Blade Runner, that he never got drunk and tried the test on himself and had Holden ask him the questions?
Well, he knew Holden would kill him, so if he had the slightest inkling he was a Blade Runner.
If you suspect someone's a replicant, you're pretty. Oh, by the way, yes, I'm actually wearing a T-shirt from the band Fear Factory, which
loving
is
it.
industrial death metal.
One-
Gigantic influence from Blade Runner.
I look at that
The album
brain and
is
I
called
see
Obsolete.
cells within cells within cells emerging from one single
They're interlinked.
stem. They're interlinked.
There's a lot of sound bites from I think the first album.
All right,
Soul
we're
of a New
closing
Machine.
into the same amount of time it took us to finish our first part of Blade Runner
'cause we're not done yet.
2049, and we're not even done
We're not
with
done yet.
Blade Runner.
We're wrapping it up.
We've got about 15 to 20 more minutes before we can really put a hard cap on this
You
one.
probably shouldn't have said that, so people are going to start tuning out, but they probably already have. So
We have a pretty good loyal audience sticking with us to the end. And I
all
want to thank
59 of you
everyone
at
who's
the
been
point of
with
this
us so
recording,
far.
thank you. Also, Merry fucking Christmas.
Merry
to all of you.
Christmas.
We're recording this on December 23rd. Like I said-
2022.
Oh, we're going to tell you, we say the year we're going to break character.
You're going to get this broadcast in 2022. We, of course, are in 2182, where we have rebelled against the Starfleet of our time.
So, nothing could ruin this movie. The voiceover couldn't ruin this movie. A shitty release couldn't ruin this movie. Nothing. When something is this is a testament to if something is that good, if something has that much cultural significance, life once again will find a way. That is the reason why this movie is revered.
Asher went
that is
on
why-
to do more successful movies and keep the conversation going. Is this a Blade Runner world connected? Is it a related universe?
Blade Runner's influence is felt all across science fiction and even drama. It's like there is a techno act called Aphex Twin.
Okay.
From the early 90s, late 80s you started. Finally won a Grammy in 2015. This man's work, Richard D. James, you could hear it. You could hear it on Nicki Minaj's album. This is just a grumpy English ginger who changed the world of techno. But it's another one of those things. It's just so good. No matter how underground something is, if it is brilliant, it will find its way through the lexicon of our culture. That's what this movie has done. It has influenced everything that's come after it. The Matrix, Star Wars. No matter what you think about that franchise, before and after it was tarnished. There's a George Michael music video that's completely rips off of Blade Runner.
Yeah, I remember that.
This movie is a staple of the entire genre and created its own genre. Synthwave.
Well, that city they built was top notch. Yeah. The model making was top notch.
Synthwave and darkwave music has been inspired by this movie.
May I just say yes, but we see a level of immersion and a level of reality and a level of believability that today's CGI can't provide.
Also, people complain about this movie being boring. It's called, I've said it before, it's called fucking Atmosphere.
Well, I don't know if Blade Runner
Atmosphere is the reason you like Empire Strikes Back. If you put that fucking movie on mute and watch it, you'll still be moved. Because it has atmosphere.
I could do this too. I think it's $1.52. Alexa, how long is Blade Runner?
An hour and 57 minutes.
Blade Runner was released 40 years and 6 months ago.
How long is Blade Runner?
Can I just ask the questions of my science officer? Alexa, what is the runtime of Blade Runner?
It's 12:20 a.m.
It's an hour and 57 minutes. The final cut.
Right.
It's okay to be wrong, Admiral. Maybe I'm due for a promotion.
Off by 5 minutes isn't wrong. You're already second in command
Off-
of this fleet.
off
the only
by
way you're
5
moving
minutes
up is when
is
I go
wrong.
on feet first. Technically, I was wrong.
It's okay. You're the official, so you can never officially be wrong. Alexa, what is the runtime of Blade Runner, the final cut?
According to an Alexa Answers contributor.
1 hour.
57 minutes. Eat it, Admiral.
Yes, but the Blade Runner I saw was 1 hour and 50 minutes.
I said the final cut. It's okay to be wrong 5 times on your own
We're
web
both
show.
right because both movies are called Blade Runner and both are canonical.
Okay, but who's wrong? No, they're not both canonical.
This movie
You know who's
merely
wrong?
has.
Do you know who's wrong?
This movie has merely been improved. It has not been changed.
Has
that
not been fixed
much.
because you can't fix perfection.
It was a pretty good. It wasn't perfect when we got it. It
So-
was a pretty good movie though.
So, Admiral, to wrap this up, what is the one thing wrong with Blade Runner? Ridley Scott.
I don't know. I think Ridley Scott did a great job.
You did a great job in
I would say the
1982.
one thing wrong with the movie would be that it came from a really complicated book where it gets crazy in the middle with a fake police squad and a whole fake police department and a replicant underground that kind of comes up in the second movie. But this whole book was a movie pitch, yet was unsuitable to be a movie. And I think the thing I take away the most is that it should be called Blade Runner, not the book. Not Do Androids Dream of Electronic Sheep. And one day someone will make a Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep movie, and it'll be kind of weird.
Well,
and
the original
crazy.
name of this movie was Dangerous Days.
Interesting. Didn't know that.
That's the name of the making of documentary. That's on the
And-
extensive Blu-ray edition that I have.
What do you think of the comparison of this movie to being a lot like Brazil that a lot of people say?
Now, you're gonna love this. I saw this in a double feature with Brazil.
Did you find them to be similar?
I mean, it's dystopian future. There's a lot more.
The steampunk art.
Very, very. A lot of the same kind of the miniature aesthetic. The cinematography is kind of very surreal.
Brazil's doing absurdism. And well,
These
they're doing it well, but
these are
that plastic
definitely-
surgery was crazy.
They're definitely companion pieces.
They don't happen in a shared universe, in my opinion, in any way, shape,
Absolutely
or form. Shared universes with Blade Runner. We've heard allegations of
Alien. Well,
and we've heard
that's confirmed.
allegations of Predator and Terminator.
Well, that means it's all confirmed. It's all been confirmed.
That this is one shared universe. If only the Fifth Element was part of it, so it was some fun some of the time. We only got a few good movies out of that universe. The Blade
You know what
Runner
they should
movie-
start doing, Admiral?
What should they start
They
doing?
should do cinematic universes, where cinema would be ruined. That would be insane, right? They can't do that.
Oh, my God.
With episodic movie, imagine waiting in line for non-standalone movies like every 3 months, and you have to see it regardless of the quality. That would be ridiculous.
The thing is that you're expecting me to understand this, but I come from a world where we would say that Star Wars had
Oh my
a
God.
universe of films, but now that doesn't suffice anymore.
Admiral.
We have this thing called a multiverse that I'm trying to grasp.
Man, Admiral, I still haven't seen Wakanda Forever.
You know what? I had a dream that I was drowning, and then I was saved by Captain Phillips, and the ship got hijacked anyway. So it's just like seeing Wakanda
You know the lead
Forever
pirate
as far
from
as
Captain
I'm.
Phillips is
It's-
Mr. Cotton from.
In Blade Runner and
2049.
in Blade Runner 2049. Now Blade Runner. Oh yeah, we didn't mention this. No black people in
We did mention
in
this.
Blade Runner, but he said that he thought it was just one part of the neighborhood. It
Chinatown?
was supposed to be a sprawling Chinatown in a city of 25
And
million.
that sounds a lot like an excuse, but
Well, we saw Whitey Town. That was the nice part above the clouds.
White Town.
White
Town
White
is up.
Town, a great artist. Your Woman, a great song from 1998. We're going to leave you now with our final thoughts on Blade Runner. A movie worth seeing. Check out the narration to see how much it's been improved. This is a new movie.
I would check out the theatrical release and the final cut and leave everything else alone.
Leave us a comment on whether you think Blade Runner 2049 and Blade Runner Original are actually true sequels, or if Blade Runner 2049 is fanfic. And,
It's not fanfiction, it's a fucking sequel.
we can see the captain is biased. And let's go get some beers. Be careful traveling out there. It's really nasty. And please like and sub this channel after you take care to make sure that you arrive at your destination safely and put your tray table in the upright and locked position. It's your buddy, Admiral Teag, and his pal, Captain Petty, signing off.